We're going to be diving into the future of enterprise operations with ServiceNow. We'll start by exploring CloudWorks' unique mission and then move on to the biggest challenges facing the market, and finally discuss the future of AI ops. Shane, for those who don't know you, you're the CEO of CloudWorks Solutions. Let's start with your story. How did you start doing what you do now?
Yeah, it's great to be on with you. I started about 23 years ago. I used to be in manufacturing and actually had a clothing line, shoe line, all this stuff. I was really into the action sports market. And I went back to school, got a software engineering degree. And then my first job out was a project manager. I basically became a partner within 4 years at that organization and took that company from 1 million to over 100 million in about 7 countries. And that's, how I got exposed. And we were at SI, we were doing pretty much every technology stack. So I had to kind of be the expert on the phone, right? Until I got the truly gifted developers and stuff to the calls later on in the process. But that's how I got started. And then I went to my next company, created a professional service department for them, grew that to just under 100 million. And then my last one, which I think gave me the biggest breadth of experience, I moved away from architecture, project management, took over IT, took over operations, became a CIO, and then ended up running the company while they were looking for a new CEO. We acquired 8 companies at Simplus and then got acquired by Infosys. And that was a Salesforce only shop. And so I ran just about every department in there, achieved all our company goals, exceeded them. And then I got the opportunity to start this. We were looking into, should we be a Snowflake shop? Should we be a ServiceNow shop? These are the two markets we were seeing. And we decided to go ServiceNow. So we've been doing that for about a year. And specifically, we're focused on, we really have done every industry from our founders, context from our past jobs and things. But for this job, we're pretty much focused in banking and insurance as well as manufacturing and high tech, things like telecoms, if you think of. So we're doing CRM, we're doing contact center, and we're doing IT operations, which there's an operations component to every one of those industries. And you're seeing AI injected into all of that. So that's where we're at.
Well, that's a fantastic and fascinating journey, Shane. You mentioned CloudWorks' bold move into the CRM market just before ServiceNow did. What was the specific trigger or insight that led CloudWorks to prioritize the CRM market, and what unique challenges did you anticipate and overcome in that pivot?
Well, it's very interesting. It's going to be hard to go into CRM generally if you're not one of the big SIs, because it's like the top 4 getting all the CRM work. Because other than that, the market's not educated on ServiceNow being a front end or a middle end system. They're back office IT. And so it's going to take years, I think, for that marketing message to catch up. But fundamentally, that platform is better built than the other leaders as far as the one data model, one architecture, and AI being built into every part of it. And they've actually had CRM functionality in there for about 8-9 years. And we had just built the biggest configure price quote, CPQ. That's all the rage in Salesforce. For a while it was before AI, right? And we built that uniquely at Simplus. And we said, we can do the same thing in ServiceNow, but we can't just be CRM, because you still have to educate the product, the market, and the customer. And we also are really tied to the operational standpoint, where we're connecting front, back, and mid office, things like contact centers or just your predictive security and compliance operations, things like that. So, those are our 2 primary focuses that we came up with, that we saw a real need in the market for. And we've been working heavily with the partnership inside of ServiceNow, helping educate them as well, because their sellers don't know how to sell to the business buyer. A lot of them know how to sell to the IT, the CIO, right? But they don't know how to sell to the CROs or, CFOs. And that's where we've seen some traction.
You're trying to educate the market and even ServiceNow's own sales team
Yes.
about the platform's broader capabilities beyond IT. What's the single biggest misconception or blind spot customers have about ServiceNow that costs them the most money or opportunity?
Well, I think it's a couple things. I think CRM itself, everyone's got an AI budget and they want to throw everything into AI. And people will throw 50% of their budgets into go to market, because those are the first fundamental use cases that came out, generative AI or summarization of customer cases and things like that. But the challenge is that people still don't have control of their data. And I've been preaching this for about 5 years at past companies. Like, as AI is coming, you need to get a hold of your customers' data, because if you know their database, if you're helping them clean up that data so the AI can use it effectively, then you're going to actually get ROI out of your initiatives. Right now, only about 5% of these AI initiatives even show any value. And even big companies that are trying to sell me their AI, you saw everyone pivot to, well, we use SQL, so how do we make that be AI? And then as they're doing that, they're creating some AI use cases. But they're fundamentally summarization, right? And so I think for that challenge of getting the data, I guess, approach to your own internal organization and processes, because you're getting the real data, about 67% plus the real ROI comes from those internal back office automations and things like that. So I think that's fundamentally where the challenge is. But you juxtaposition that up against the CRM, and there's a lot of use cases for it, but people have put quite in big investments in other products, right? So how do you fundamentally close those gaps? Or do you have to integrate with those companies versus pulling them all over onto the new platform? That's the primary challenge, really.
Yeah, that you mentioned your innovative approach to the talent shortage as well,
Yes.
running a boot camp and building bespoke consultant pods. Could you elaborate a bit on this model and also how this model of building custom pods for each customer differs from the resource extension?
Sure. Let's take customer acquisition first. So the customer acquisition costs have always been very high. A lot of customer people, you'll hear people like, for example, say, "We don't have money to invest in your promotion," but they're going to continue to hire, and they don't look at what that cost of acquisition, retraining, loss of productivity, and sign-on fees and all that stuff are, because it's usually two different departments doing it, which kind of leads into my next thing, which is that if there's two things. One, if your customer retention team who's looking at all that, and also for internal employees, you could apply this. But if your customer acquisition team is reporting to a customer success department, you're probably not on the forefront of all this new AI technology, because you're probably not using every department and interjecting your processes throughout, because it's really everyone. It's RevOps, it's customer service, it's product, it's sales. They should all be involved in that. At the same time, businesses are moving to consumption models and subscription models, and that makes your retention very predictable if you're using things like AI tools effectively. And usually, unfortunately, paid tools usually have a better return on your investment than internally built ones. And so that's one challenge that customers have when we go into like strategy. I think, I could go into a lot more there, but I think for your other question, our managed service team, I've run managed services for 20 plus years in various departments. I've even run them for a white label for 6 or 7 of the big 10 consulting firms. But what I've seen is it's a lot of times becomes kind of a staff augmentation, which I've never liked. What I like to do is have a customer success, a playbook, and build a pod specifically for that company. So we're not just going to take all of our greatly trained resources that everyone else can say the same thing. They got skills, they got certifications, great. But what's your process to make sure that we're achieving everything, pulling all of our backlog forward, really interjecting change management and strategy into the managed service, and building a pod specifically for me as a customer that's also very flexible as my tasks change. I don't have to hire 7 people. I can hire you, pay less than one person, and get all of this talent. That's where we're really trying to be a different managed service consultancy, although we also do implementation and strategy.
Yeah. And you touched a bit on the benefit that companies or clients see from paid experiences. What is the tangible benefit like that they see
The
from
main
the
thing is
boutique
the
experience?
main thing that they see is the difference for us is we do lower costs by using a combined onshore offshore team, but the people are available on the entire team within their working hours. That's one difference that they see that leads to a lot better communication and successful understanding of requirements. The other benefit is really that flexible pod, because they don't just get the flexible resources depending on their needs. They get that predictable amount. Say you're paying 5,000 a month, for example. You know what that's going to be every month. It's very easy for them to predict their costs internally, and we make that contract vehicle very easy for them to get in and out of. We've got about a 97% track record of retention. So I think We don't really worry about anyone wanting to cancel, but we make that very flexible for people. And so I think that's the main benefit that they get because they're consistently seeing return on that dollar investment.
Nice. Earlier, before this podcast, we had a call and you mentioned that many small banks use 50 plus applications and how 80% of that work could be consolidated into ServiceNow. That absolutely blew my mind. If a bank or a manufacturer chooses to continue running 50 disparate systems instead of consolidating, what is the quantifiable cost to their business?
Sure. I mean, for example, I've seen small banks, with only a few branches that are only using 10 to 20, but on average, they're using 50 plus applications. They have a specific application for loans, for checking onboarding, for looking at your credit scores, for doing all this stuff, then all their internal applications. But ServiceNow has about 80% of that functionality built on the platform. So for example, if you're in banking, you've got your loan operations, your deposit operations, you've got a branch manager, you could see all of your locations and what they're doing. You can inject the SLAs that are required by regulatory systems right to into the workflow that your people have, so you can see what's at risk, what's not. And then on the insurance side, you've got underwriting workspaces with specific workflows built for thousands of individual use cases built into that. And then they're using the AI on top of that. And let's take something that's easy for people to understand. Let's take your ATMs or your monitors at your branches. What happens if one of those goes down? What does that cost an individual bank, right? Versus I can see that we've got a problem in the system because the AI is running, it's watching all of these things and it sees some weird anomaly, gives a quick message to your IT tech support, route someone out there. You can do everything from that to the internal operations like loan ops and things like that within the platform. But people don't know that, right? Because they still think of it as just running your internal IT. And so I see people that want to come to the digital forefront. And this is usually the smaller and mid-market banks that don't have all of the investment and red tape that make it so hard to change. Those are the banks that are, I think, most likely to come on. Although the biggest banks in the world are using ServiceNow, it's a matter of getting that out of just the back office. I mean, what's my total cost of ownership? And how can I reduce maybe 50 systems go down to 20? I'm doing 30 of those functions in one application with access to all of the data from all of those. That's where the power is if someone's got the vision to go to it.
And Shane, you're focused on growing the managed side, service side by injecting strategy and change management. What is the biggest operational or technological constraint that prevents CloudWorks from scaling managed services faster?
I think the biggest challenge, at least for us, which is always true of a startup, is that a lot of people already have a vendor, right? So you're either coming in to do rescues or you're coming in to do people that are displeased with their services or their costs versus somebody just not having any access to those teams. And enterprise, someone already has those teams. Whereas if you go down to the smaller businesses, a lot of times they don't. But to be clear, ServiceNow is still looked at as an IT application by a lot of people. And that's the last place companies spend budget. So those smaller and lower mid-market companies maybe can't afford that, but people, 200 plus to 5,000, size employees, they can afford to use something like this and actually get the benefit. And I remember doing this as a small team, right? When we had like 20 people, we couldn't afford these big applications. We had to build our own stuff. But as you grow, this can really accelerate the need and use of that to accelerate your business forward. Because I believe everything, IT, your CRM, they should all be driving revenue ultimately. And if they're not, you need to rethink your processes and come up to digital transformation. And managed services is constantly looking at that. And they're doing monthly and quarterly reviews for how you're using your systems. And if you can go back to standard functionality and get more out of future proofing your builds, things like that, that a lot of people just don't think about because they're just going through tasks.
Yeah. I do have another question. And you did mention a bit earlier today that you keep your costs down by having multiple onshore teams and offshore teams. I was wondering is there any overhead required to maintain quality across your teams?
There is, but that's where my customer success manager and the way that I define that role just a bit differently. You can think of it as a project manager that also has engagement oversight kind of responsibilities, as well as looking at for us, customer acquisition, and then for the customer, that they're seeing the benefit from the service. That's their sole responsibility. And so it makes it a little bit better when they also have that playbook that we define. So the first 2 weeks of your project, you get a playbook that's designed towards you so that we know how you work, how your internal, departments work, what all of our purview is. And we kind of turn that into a center of excellence. And that
Hmm.
is where I think our power comes from because our offshore teams, every person has a responsible area of, that customer excellence strategy, right? So without that in the past, it's very easy for people to change teams and just go straight to cost. Well, I just need to lower my costs. Well, we don't want to race to the bottom of the barrel. We want to still provide that boutique experience, white glove service, but we can do that effectively by putting just a few hours onshore, keeping most of it like in the Philippines, for example, but having, those people available during the time, all very good English skills as well as the other skills. So it makes it like you don't know they could be sitting at a desk next to you, right? That's the experience that I think the customer wants, but they also want that low cost. And I think we can bring those two things together.
Amazing. Looking ahead, Shane, what is the one thing that has to go right for CloudWorks to hit its biggest goals in the next year? And what is the single biggest market risk? Is it competition from the SIs or the speed of ServiceNow platform evolution that keeps you up at night?
Well, the great thing is, I think that it's all up to us. I think you want to expand your market, but you don't want to necessarily expand your focus too quickly because you want to be really good at that one or two things that you're doing. You don't want to try to be everything to all people. So I think keeping that in check because we do get people that come to us for really off the wall requirements or other industries, and you just got to be careful what business you take. But I think for us, the focus really that I've learned throughout all my other businesses is on the partnership. I think having a strong relationship with the ServiceNow folks, partnering with them in support and sales of their platform rather than just using a tool to satisfy a customer need. I think you want to be that partner. A lot of times I see people work against that partnership and try to keep those, let's say, Salesforce or ServiceNow or Microsoft, keep them out of the deal so that I can just do my thing. It's much better to include that. So for me, that's what I think will be our biggest lever for success is having a strong partnership.
Yeah. And how does CloudWorks choose their clients? Are there any instances when CloudWorks has had to turn some clients away for any reason?
We haven't yet. Well, I guess I take that back. We did have one that was just not even. It's something we could have done, but it was basically staff aug of another service, just IT staffing. Which I think if you just try to take whatever business comes your way, it takes away from your focus. And so I guess there was that one. But for the most part, people look at what we're good at, and that's usually why they're finding us. And then when we're going out and looking, we're looking specifically for like the upper mid market to lower enterprise so that we can kind of not have to compete as much with the big SIs, but um, have the people that have the budgets, right, to get the right type of service. Because I will tell you one mistake that a previous business made is that they were trying to get into a specific product. The customers they were going after did not have budgets anywhere near enough to have a successful implementation. So you're just trying to push an implementation through, and then where's the support? Where's the post sale support? Oh, we have no hours for it, or that's costing us money. I never want to be in that position with this business. So we take very seriously, having the right customer that has a budget, and we're very honest and open about what that is, and we're not going to undercut it just to get the deal and then pepper you with change orders. I've seen other businesses, including some of the Big 10, do that. And I just find that dishonest. So I think that's also where we hopefully can differentiate as we grow and try to retain those customers.
What's something that we need to talk about that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, we've talked about it a little bit, but I want to go back to data and your AI strategy. Everybody, especially in banking and insurance, companies like that, they all these CIOs are being given these budgets. Everybody wants to do something in AI, and most companies have a budget for that. But you don't just want to be on the bandwagon of, hey, I'm implemented AI. Like, I'll take an example. Here's something we haven't talked about. I see this all the time. I've probably used it myself in a blog in the past. You state something like, let's say, buy this product from ServiceNow, it's going to increase your productivity 30%. I've seen that so many times. It's always 30 or 40%. What does that mean? Because if you're just giving people back time, it doesn't mean that you're increasing their productivity. You have to make sure that you've got a good program to apply that freed up time to higher value tasks that can, increase. Maybe you're increasing your product offering or something. But I'm not a big fan of just like losing employees so that I can replace it with AI. But what you should be doing is looking at how does AI help me get more out of those employees that I do have. And also, I don't need to hire so much so fast in the future because I'm building these tools. So I think if you can create a strategy like that, you can not only have a good internal employee environment because AI scares a lot of people nowadays. Everybody, the accounting, they all think they're marketing. Where's my job going to be? Well, if you're thinking about it right, in my mind, not like some of these big SIs, they're just looking at a number on their balance sheet saying, hey, I could cut this much by having AI. And then those AI pilots don't work out, then they're gonna, rehire in a year. I see customers like not really knowing how to create that strategy or not really thinking through that because they're all just trying to be first to, hey, I've got an AI injected product for you. And so I know I went a little bit all over the place, but I'm trying to tie that back to is you should really have a specific vision and a governance program that is built right alongside your AI program. But you got to start first with the data because if you just integrate, which I've seen customers do, and your data is still bad, you've just expanded your problems. If you're using AI, you've expanded your hallucinations, right? I'll pause here in case you get any questions, but that's the big thing that I like to talk to customers about nowadays. It's really just fundamentals of that strategy.
Yeah. And Shane, where is CloudWorks now in terms of growth and revenue? This helps us understand the stage you're at and how your insights resonate with our audience.
Well, the good thing is that we haven't had to raise a ton of money. We had our initial investments and we've managed that pretty well. So as far as growth, we've grown to about 175 partners, and I include some of those internal groups in that partnership, not necessarily 175 customers, but 175 specific groups that we're working with, which has been our biggest thing. I don't like to put our actual numbers out, like good or bad, into the market. But I would say the growth has been pretty steady. I guess the narrative that we're offering seems to really be resonating, right? Especially with a lot of people not happy with some of the AI and some of the CRM products out there and how they've innovated. A lot of people are paying too much, getting too little. And so I think that'll keep fueling our growth. But I would say it's been steady. I will also say it hasn't been honestly as high growth as I had hoped. And most people I've talked to this year have all had challenges with sales. It just seems to be a really bad year for software. But we've been able to, work through that, keep going strong. Um, I will say we're sitting in a really good spot right now, and we're hoping to grow about 2 to 5 times in the next year, and that's what our pipeline seems to look like. So I think it'll be steady increase, and then my plan would be to double or triple the business every year hereafter. Much more rapid pace once we get a few more logos behind us, right? Because I think that's your biggest challenge as a startup is having a good reference. I can reference 1,000 companies that I did business with before, but not as CloudWorks. So that's what we're working to get in because the ServiceNow is a long sales cycle, but the projects can be shortened quite a bit now if you're working with a firm that knows how to use AI, vibe coding, and things like that, and pre-built workflows, and keep you out of the box as much as possible. Then you can have a very quick integration or implementation, I should say.
Yeah. Well, Shane, thank you so much for your time today. It was incredibly insightful to learn about CloudWorks' unique approach to the CRM market within ServiceNow, your innovative talent acquisition strategies, and how you're helping educate the market on ROI from the platform is amazing. I can't wait to see the heights that CloudWorks reaches next year and would love to catch up sometime in the future to discuss more.
Yeah, it'd be great. It's been good. Thanks a lot for the opportunity and the conversation. It's always fun to take a step away from the business and then just talk. So appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much.